Welcome, everybody. And thank you for joining us. I think, Bartosz, is this the last one of 2 days? Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you for bearing until the last one. But the last one is never the dull one. Because we want to know what's going on in the carrier business, right? I think we do. And the topic of today is the carrier business of tomorrow. So welcome to the session and stay with us because we have more than an hour to discuss it. Is voice still key? What is next? How is this evolving? The mobility services like SMS, hubs, and what have you more. The rise of illegal voice calls and the messages, but foremost, how to restore the trust. And I'm really thankful, really honored actually to have all the senior panelists sitting next to me. They know, they have a multi-year experience, they went through everything, even some, just a secret, some even were the first one to go off a typewriter on a computer, sitting here. So we know, we have the knowledge, we are there. No, guys, no. I'm not looking at anybody, but having that in a panel, I'm so honored. And I'll give them a quick minute to introduce themselves, and after that we go in the keynote presentation from Simwood. But before we start, Philippe, you want to kick it off? Introduce yourself. Say something about i3 Forum.
Thanks, Erik. So I'm Philippe Millet. I'm the founder and chair of the i3 Forum, which is an organization of the carrier community. It's been around for 15 years, so I don't sell anything. I don't buy anything, which is kind of relaxing, I guess. And among other things, what we do is bring the industry, so the traffic carrying companies and the vendors for voice and SMS, really, together to try and find solutions to challenges that none of us can fix on our own. So collaboration is key. One of the main things we do these days, and that's, I think, the reason why I'm here, thank you very much for inviting me, is this initiative we call Restore Trust. It's much bigger than the industry. I'll talk more about it. And it's going to be interesting, I'm sure.
And I'm very happy that you are here with us because we know each other. We used to be former colleagues, actually, a long time ago. He was on marketing and I was on sales in Orange, a long time ago. Yesterday. So I'm yesterday. Of course it was yesterday. No, but I'm very happy and proud to have you sitting here with me, Philippe. Thank you so much. Aleksandr, over to you.
Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Aleksandr Moskotin. I'm co-founder of the Afina data monetization platform. This is a new project and really very interesting for mobile operators because we bring digital marketing for mobile operators. We analyze data which mobile operator could provide and started monetize in a CPA model. We received lots of awards this year, so it's a very pleasure to be there. Thank you very much.
Oh, so proud, so proud. Now normally you have Flying Dutchmans, okay? You have two sitting here, But there is also another flying guy who is every week flying around the world. Mark, over to you.
Hi, good afternoon. Is this on? Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Mark Trowbridge from ConXhub. We actually work with the mobile operators and tier 1 ISPs, actually rejuvenating their mobile cellular network. So I'm a bit of the odd one out here because I'm not data bound.
Thank you.
And helping them rejuvenate their cellular network, which is going underutilized, and we give them the capacity to offer additional services to their clients and customers that they don't already have. And that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much. Great having you. And now over to somebody who normally doesn't need any introduction, but he has received this year the Lifetime Achievement Award of contributing to the industry, to the people, and helping them to educate and bring them a step further, and the market, and everything, the complete ecosystem. So, Mr. van Ierland.
Thank you, Erik. My name is Edwin van Ierland. I'm the COO of IBasis, the independent company which started 6 years ago, founded by Aleksandr, one of your former bosses, guys, and one of my former bosses, because he's now the chairman of the supervisory board of the new organization. I run the factory, So I'm responsible for all the operational activities in the company and preparing, let's say, the future of virtualization, efficiency, effectiveness, and cheap OpEx.
Namely cheap OpEx, right? Thank you for being here. And talking about rewarded people, I mean, he with his company, I think he needs a complete office with his company to make sure that he can put all the awards from whoever in his total office. Fabrizio, honor having you here. Over to you.
Honor is on my side. So I'm Fabrizio Salanitri. I'm the CEO of HORISEN. We are a technology product house selling messaging solutions for mainly mobile operators and carriers. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
No, the honor is almost mine. Nabil, over to you. Another great company, Zain.
Hello, am I audible? Yeah. Nadir Patel from Zain International. Good evening and thank you everybody for joining this session. I think the photographer should be taking the photo of the audience who is here at 4:15 in the evening to attend the last session.
But he likes you. That's why he's taking pictures
No,
of
he
you.
can take my photos, but I think they deserve a round of applause for being here and supporting us. I was in half a mind to, excuse myself. So yeah, Director of Carrier and Mobile Services in Zoe. We manage 8 operations across the Middle East and North Africa region, involved in voice, messaging, and trying to mitigate fraud and everything that's mentioned over there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, we're not done yet because in a second I'll give the floor to Peter and to David. But isn't this a great crowd, guys? Come on, for once. It's not every day that you see this lineup, huh? And I'm proud of that. See, even after so many years, I am. So, Peter, David, over to you. Take it away.
You. Thank you very much. Can we get that presentation? That's the exact one we were hoping to have. Well, thank you very much for sticking with us. We're really pleased to be here. Going to introduce the company first and then tell you a little bit about us. We're from Simwood. We're a UK and US-based carrier, but very importantly, and with reference to this panel, we're a carrier that you can trust. It's the most important thing. We're based in the UK, but we've got headquarters in the US as well. And I'd like to introduce you to my friend and colleague, Pete Farmer here. Pete's got a background in regulatory economics, and he's been to court in the UK several times, even up to the Supreme Court, but for all the right reasons. Nothing bad has happened there. It's been very positive.
It wasn't a criminal case. I'll just stress that.
I've been in telecoms for a good long time, since the inception of voice over IP back in the late 1990s and early 2000s, and I served as the worldwide community director for the Asterisk open source project for a good long time. Now, you can see we've got likes and dislikes here. Pete likes a level playing field, but he intensely dislikes wealth transfer from the poor to the rich via telephone calls. It's a nasty business that we're going to talk about. I love creating simple solutions to complex problems, but I absolutely detest profiteering at the expense of vulnerable people and countries. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Pete for a moment.
Thank you, David. So, what is an origin-based search? So what does this have to do with trust? Bear with me on this. I will circle back to it. So for those in the audience that don't know, and I'm sure you all do, an origin-based surcharge is simply a termination rate that is determined on the perceived origin, place of origin of a call. Now, in reality, that is abbreviated to ITU country code, might be a little bit deeper to deal with the Tasmanias and the Puerto Ricos of this world, or sometimes guesswork in the case of a malformed or invalid CLI, or various assumptions might make work their way in. So what are they meant to achieve? In the UK and the EU deployment of an origin-based rating regime, they're meant to achieve some form of reciprocity between the originating country and the terminating country. The idea is that domestic callers calling abroad are protected from abusive prices by calling abroad, by there being an amount of reciprocity. So if a UK consumer is charged a large amount to call Zimbabwe, then a Zimbabwean is then charged a fair amount to come back. With the UK deployment is actually based on the rate of the terminating operator is how reciprocity is done. In the EU, with the Euro rates regime, it's about reciprocity of regulatory environment. Okay, so if the EU likes the regulatory regime of, say, Zimbabwe, then there's an annex to a regulation and that country name appears on it and there's no surcharging. You can also deal with the practice. I won't name the countries. We all know who they are. Those state-owned monopolies that jack up their termination rate overnight because the government's short of hard currency. Now, on to trust. I did say bear with me. We're getting there. A post-truth, if you like, has come out in the UK that spam calls and robocalling has reduced into the UK and other regimes that have introduced a form of origin-based surcharging. That wasn't actually part of the regulator's justification for implementing it in the first place. It's just come out as a happy justification afterwards. Now, what have they actually achieved, in our view? There are elements of supernormal profits somewhere in the value chain. And the reason that we say this is, for example, Virgin O2, Telefonica O2, whatever they're called today in the UK, don't apply a surcharge at the terminating end of a call. They got roughly a 25% market share. So 1 in 4 calls into the UK has no surcharge at the terminating end. But if your rate deck is calculated by doing a little Excel formula of equals max and then the surcharges, someone is accidentally pocketing, potentially, a surcharge on calls they're not paying the surcharge out on. But most of all, and this is what vexes me the most with this regime, UK regulation specifically says that you should not connect a call with an invalid CLI. So an improperly formatted CLI, if it's +44, there are more rules around that. But this regime actually allows you to charge for a malformed CLI. Okay, so you can't block it, but you can charge for it. So there's a moral hazard that has been introduced there with calls coming into the UK with certain operators that can monetize, and they're actually allowed to charge the highest surcharge because their assumption is that it's a satellite call for the invalid number that they're meant to block. Now this figure, I know my friend from IBasis is going to challenge this in a second, but we've been told by a number of operators that they've seen an 80% reduction in traffic towards the UK as a result of the surcharge regime. So we can restore trust as much as we like within the PSTN, but if the traffic is all on WhatsApp, it's a slightly academic conversation at this point. The other thing is, due to an extensive analysis that was performed by myself and some colleagues, we have demonstrated that since the regime came in, all changes in UK consumer prices to call abroad can be explained simply by foreign currency movements and inflation. So it hasn't actually led to a reduction in calling costs for UK consumers. So I know one of the themes of this panel is going to be what's next for voice. Well, if you're Meta, if you're Mark Zuckerberg, probably quite a lot, because we actually managed to drive some of the traffic over the top, regardless of what percentage that might have been. Now, very quickly, because I know you want to all get to the panel, I'm going to hand back to my colleague just to explain slightly just what we do differently.
Thank you very much, Pete. So as Pete's been explaining, there's this rule that came in the UK and some parts of Europe about origin-based surcharges, where telecoms companies are accidentally pocketing a little bit of money. In fact, it's not a little bit of money, it's quite a lot of money. Simwood actively campaigned and lobbied against the imposition of origin-based surcharges, but they were imposed anyway. However, true to the courage of our convictions, Simon Woodhead, the founder and CEO, has made a public declaration that Simwood as a company will not profit from origin-based surcharges. So what that means is if you're an incumbent provider in the country or you've got a strong regional presence and you're wanting to bring traffic to the UK, we can have a very open and honest conversation about the blend of traffic and give you the best deals. In fact, as a foreign carrier, if you're coming into the UK, we would actually charge you the same as inside the country charges, so that there's no extra to pay where no surcharge has been applied. Now, we've got a few things that help us to do this that we've built. One of them is our fraud and arbitrage prevention system, or FAP. And what that does is it allows us to give to our carriers the best price based on the level of complexity of all of these different rates of origin-based surcharges that they can consume and the risk that we can take together. What happens is when a call comes into the Simwood network, we take over 250 checks on each call, including origin-based routing, origin-based surcharges, and we're able to bring the shutters down on any calls that could fall outside of that blended mix that we've agreed. And we can even provide specific reject codes so that your system can read back and understand the reason why a call has been rejected, and therefore not do route advancement to a more expensive carrier. Therefore, we are your secret weapon against bill shock and anything nasty happening like that. And importantly, just before we leave this slide, we should say that all of this is actually available through an API. So you can programmatically see all of this going on and see your near instantaneous bill details as well. I'm going to hand back to you, Pete, to wrap up.
I'd say just one of the many things that we do differently, and we'll be talking about some more of it in the panel, I'm sure, in a minute.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any questions so far for Pete and for David? Yeah, please do, please do. Any questions? I think from my left there will be a question or curveball.
No curveball this time, just a question. First of all, I sympathize with your presentation and I compliment you that you dare to present this. I think only that you are a little bit late. Let's say 6-7 years ago already, let's say many parties took actions to implement OBR, and your official reason at that time you were part of the EU and not a separate island. But there was also another reason why OBR was implemented, and that was in fact to create new revenue. Because indeed, I'm not going to debate about the decline of the PSTN traffic, that's known, and that there is a flight to OTT, that's also known. But at the same time, the carriers try to find alternative ways to protect their top-line revenue, and OBR was one of them. So it was not only protecting the end consumer, it was in fact an alternative way to create new revenue. And my colleague, former SFR colleague Nicolas Barrett, was the inventor of OBR when SFR started that phenomenon, and then many countries followed. Did we protect fraud, or did we protect or abuse of PSTN traffic? I think there were different other ways to do that. And I think at this moment, and Philippe can state that we have eliminated already a lot of the fraud and let's say, gray or dark routes in the voice industry. Let's say there was, I'm not allowed to say a blacklist, but there was a whitelist. Within the I3 form we created, let's say, the anti-fraud and the protocol at that time which we had to sign up. But I appreciate that you dare to step in this environment at this moment, and I wish you good luck with selling your product. But you are a little bit late, to be quite honest.
Philippe, you quickly want to...
Thanks.
And then maybe we'll go...
Thanks, Edwin. Just to clarify, we don't do blacklists because that's kind of illegal. But yeah, we do share information about actual fraud cases and help the industry pick the right partners for this, which is a little bit different. Regarding this, we have the approach we have regarding all those regulatory innovations here and there, multiple areas, and not just OBR, is we'd rather work with the regulators globally, which is what we're doing in the various forums we've created, rather than try and bypass regulation in some shape or form, which I don't think really helps the industry move forward in the right direction. So that would be my comment on that. I understand the temptation, And I understand that things like OBR does create issues in the industry, but would rather work with regulators than against them.
Any comment on this one, Pete, David? You want to comment on the guys?
I think the existence of a no-deal Brexit did influence the UK's regulator in perhaps allowing for some reciprocity. I have seen out there, emails, threads, posts on forums saying things like, well, if you want to avoid the surcharge, just change the PAssert ID to +44. So it has created a moral hazard and something that we're not particularly happy about since 2019 when it was first consulted on in the UK, but it's here to stay until 2027.
Yeah, and I think on that, before I sit down, the nuanced message there was origin-based surcharges are there, and they can't be changed until the next period of consultation. However, what we were pointing out is that certain elements in the community use them as almost an excuse to pocket some money, because they might be sending calls to places that don't impose origin-based surcharges, and they might be charging for that. I'm going to sit down, Pete.
I need to dust off my regulatory economist hat and put it on and work out the elasticity of drop in traffic, whatever percentage it may be, versus increased revenue, and see if the net effect is positive. I suspect it's actually been deleterious for our country.
All right, kicking off already. And but before we do, thank you again, guys, for your presentation. And Edwin, if I may start with you actually, and then Fabrizio on especially on the messaging side, I would like to have you kicking that off. The current carrier business landscape. So the state of it, the mobility service evolution, the challenges, and especially on the voice side and the illegal calls on that one, and then later on as well on the messaging, please, your statement. So, Edwin, if you like to open up.
If you look at the reality at this moment, it's a fact that, let's say, the voice business was in decline. And on purpose, I'm telling was, because there is still a plateau going on where we have reached through the years, let's say, a certain minimum volume. And let's say there are many carriers who are fighting for the market share. Let's say from an IBasis perspective, we are able to grow the market share going forward. And it's a fact, let's say, that the margin you are making on the voice business is still fueling, let's say, the development, either in the mobile business, in the IoT business, or in the messaging business. That's also a fact. Let's say we fought against, let's say, generated traffic. We looked at fraud. We looked at A-number manipulation. I think we are now not in total control, but we are in control for a significant part of the voice business. And it's very clear for everybody. Who benefited? The end consumer. Because the prices, let's say, to make a call is at a normal rate, and OBR, indeed, in some cases it helped, in some cases it did not help. But we have reached, let's say, a fair competition level across the industry. Going fast forward, what did we discover? At a certain moment, new technology was introduced, and especially 4G was introduced, and then people said, what the hell is going to happen? Everybody's migrating to voice over LTE. Guys, we knew that already 5 years ago. And we are losing top-line revenue. We are losing, indeed, a significant amount of our PSTN traffic. Yes, of course you lose that, and your mobile originated traffic. And then people start looking at alternatives. And I'd throw the curveball now to my colleague on the other side of Erik, because then messaging became interesting. Oh, how can we gain revenue from messaging? Oh, let's do the same what we did with voice. High termination rates. 26 cents to certain destinations. Oh, artificial inflated traffic. Huge commitments. Let's give a blank check up front.
Replayed, yeah.
So let's say what happened traditionally in the voice for many years, where we had regulatories, we had many actions, and we had education amongst ourselves, we see that things are moving into a different direction. And that's the reality. And now, I call myself a veteran in the industry. I'm 30 years in the industry already, and I've seen that pattern for many years. Are we able to clean it up? I think it's looking at each other from, let's say, okay, integrity, transparency, regain trust in the industry, and make it transparent to everybody. Let's say I'm an advocate to get rid of artificial inflated traffic in the messaging. I'm fundamentally against it that we accept high rates on termination in messaging, and that MNOs are even accepting the blank check because the top line revenue will be compensated over there. That's all I have to say, Erik.
Okay, all right. Now, Mr. Fabrizio, on the messaging, as a guru as you are in messaging, and you saw it all already, you saw it all. So what's your take on it, and how do you see the carrier landscape, the carrier business landscape from a messaging point of view? What's out there?
So I would like to thank Edwin for the history of fraud, you know, coming from voice to the messaging. Fraud is a really big pain. And, but you know, where fraudsters are, from my point of view, you always need two to tango. So, dear operators, sometimes it's too easy just to blame the fraudster. If you give the opportunity to a company to commit that, to give the check, well, then you endorse them, you know, to start ruining, literally speaking, our industry. Because let's face it, SMS is a fantastic channel, and it's here to stay. It will not go away so fast as we think. Like, you remember 20 years ago, voice will disappear. It's still here. The same with SMS.
I still call my mother every Sunday.
But you know,
the fixed line.
Yeah, even fax is still there. But you cannot charge 20 cents for 160 characters. You can't do that. It's just too much. You kill all the business opportunities. You know, in America, as an example, why messaging got so big? Because it was so cheap that the brands said, you know what? This is so cheap, why shall I send an email? No, I will increase the user experience and send a message instead. That's why they had billions and billions and billions of messages. Great for all of us. And I still believe if you cut the price 50%, you will not double the messages. You will triple them or quadruple them. So it's all about volume. And in regards of the fraudsters, you know, what's happening right now, and by, you know, these wonderful Excel sheets, what maybe some mobile operators, you know, just get, let's say, blended, that they say, wow, this looks fantastic, fantastic on Excel. Unfortunately, all the columns regarding the consequences, what happens in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they are not there in this Excel. Because there is no 2, 3, 4, or 5 years. That's the reality. The message, well, this business will disappear. Because no brand will, I mean, you're inviting the brands to search for another channel because it's so super expensive, because they are abused, there is inflated traffic. There's so many reasons not to do it anymore. And this is not only the fault of the fraudster. Of course it is, but not only. You know?
Well, if somebody gives you an apple, you don't have to eat the apple, right? To make it very, very simple. Mark, what did you say? Eva did, yeah, but that's Eve, you know. Anyway, Mark, your take on the carrier business. Well, I mean, not only on this topic, but maybe you see also some other challenges. Well, what's out there?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points. I mean, I hear every day. In fact, I was in the bus coming here yesterday, and somebody said what they used to do. They said, "Yeah, I was in boring voice, and now I'm in data." And they said, "What do you do, Mark?" And I said, "I'm in boring voice." I love voice, and you know, when you think of it logically now, you know, we talk about voice declining across the world. I don't believe that. We've all come here today, and we're all talking, and we're listening, and we're speaking. We've come here to communicate. Voice is the best thing we've ever had as human beings. And I just see that evolving and scaling. I see more of it. And whilst the operators say they're in decline, and yes, their figures are, voice hasn't declined. It's just moved to other sectors. It moved to the OTT sectors. So if the operators want to do something about their bottom line, then they need to do something about the OTT. That's the reality. And that is coming up in conversation. But voice isn't in decline. We're all talking more. What will happen in terms of futurism is that we'll be able to communicate better and more using AI. Obviously, we'll better have conversations across multiple languages. And that's of interest to a lot of people. You know, that's something we can do instantly and we can do now. One thing I want to say on the fraud side is that quite a lot of the operators now are using hammers to solve a problem. So we had an issue a few weeks ago where, yeah, one of the numbers was being used for fraud. Okay, that's bad. But what the operator did was they closed down the whole number range. Now that's crazy, because some of those numbers are used by emergency services. They're used by doctors' surgeries. How can you close down a whole range and impede, emergency aspects? It's ridiculous. So they've got to look at this not with that Excel spreadsheet view. They've got to look at it in another way. And what I'm really grateful for is, obviously, we have got things like AI coming in now. There is a lot of usage cases where that will help and assist operators to manage that fraudulent area. So there's a couple of takes from me.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Aleksandr, how do you see the business? What kind of challenges do you see?
Yeah, of course. So in my point of view, like nowadays, subscribers stop using SMS. Subscribers stop using voice. They all go to messengers. And nowadays, I receive maybe 5 to 6 fraud calls every day, because I have maybe 2, 3 SIM cards in my mobile phone, and I switch them, and I just receiving only fraud calls every day. So I think that this is one way why people are going to messengers, because messengers nowadays using more system which prevent fraud traffic. Of course, it's not so good, but they go in it. So I think that one way for mobile operators to prevent fraud is start using more and more AI systems which will be detect fraud traffic before the call. So it's possible. I know these cases. In some regions, mobile operators already use these systems.
Okay, thank you. Nabil?
Carrier business from my side, I believe it was always here to stay. We've been talking about it is going to decline, voice will go, now messaging will go. I think carrier business will stay here, and carrier business has to stay here. If we need to have GCCM every year and capacity events every year and ITWs every year, no, not for that, but yes, for the business. When we talk about, and in fact, even Sohail mentioned in his opening welcome speech a day ago, we have been doing certain retail promotions on our side in collaboration with some of the key partners in the region. And we have seen the voice traffic grow. Despite the opportunity or the option for the customers to have a WhatsApp call or a bottom call or download a VPN and make some calls. No, when you price the product right and you give the customer the confidence that you can use X number of minutes by paying X value dollar, they will make the calls, and they do make the calls. We have seen that happen on our network. We have seen that also happen on A and B party networks, where we transit the calls. There is a use case for us where the traffic grew from one country to another country 3 times over a period of 3 years, which was unbelievable for us. From a 50-60 million minutes a month to a 220 minutes a month, that was a real success, which we have experienced and we have seen from our side. On the messaging side, yes, there has always been, it was a golden goose, I think, and people try to get the eggs out before, waiting for it to keep on delivering. But I believe that some rationality will come and has to come at some point in time. Yeah, some operators are still under that stage there where they feel that if I can get a secured revenue from somebody, I don't mind getting that extra dollars in my pocket now. But they don't realize that this now is not going to last long. 6 months, 8 months, 1 year down the line. And we have seen aggressive responses from the likes of Twitters or even the big OTTs. They just suppress the messages. If they see the pricing has gone too high, they suppress the messages. They say, we don't want to send this anymore. So rationalization will happen. Fraud and our business is, it's like a learning cycle. We learn that some fraudsters are doing certain things. We try to implement solutions. They learn that we have implemented solutions, and then they start finding new ways. So we keep complementing each other. The cycle of life goes on, as we say. But I believe that this would also be required at some point in time to keep the juice in the business running, and to ensure that we also stay awake all the time and keep offering the customers better products, better solutions, and better services.
All right. So, Pete, what is the trend of the voice services, and what does the future of the voice services look like from your point of view?
So, yeah, I think increasingly monetizing just a minute, the carriage of a minute from A to B, is increasingly difficult. It's increasingly commoditized. There's going to be consolidation in that area. But it's not going to die, and not for a long time. I always laugh when people say, "Oh, voice is dead." Well, fax isn't dead. I've still got to support fax on my network. They're still going strong. And J2 Global.
Some industries, they make a huge amount of money only sending faxes every month.
Yeah, absolutely. And J2 Global, for example, is one that has made the last man standing strategy play off. So for many, many years, the ubiquity of that E164 identifier that you can punch it in and you can actually then verbally communicate with someone is a feature that is going to last for a long time. In terms of carriers, that carriage from A to B and trying to make a margin on that is increasingly for carriers, I think, is going to be about adding value. It's either for your enterprises having guaranteed quality routes. So the president of the Bank of England, picks up the phone, he knows it's going to have a high MOS score and it's going to connect with the right CLI, low latency, etc. And it's going to be the services that go on top, be that transcription, summarization, a call on our network now. It can be transcribed and dropped by API straight into your chosen second brain software, for example. Those will always command a premium. And I think for carriers, the future has to be that software application stack for the signaling and media that's crossing their network.
Okay. Philippe, the best practice for ensuring service integrity and to regain the trust. Can we stop fraud?
Best practice for ensuring trust. Well, I think we're all looking for that. If I want to take a step back and maybe to build on what was just discussed.
The floor is yours. The floor is yours.
Build on what was discussed in terms of the future of voice. I tend to agree with what everyone said, that voice as a service is certainly not dying. Just look at us, right? We can't stop talking, especially me. So that's one thing. The way it's delivered and the way people consume it changes. I think there are a number of things that we need to fix in this industry, because there's a going trend to less costs, and that changes the way this industry operates and needs to operate. Probably towards more automation, probably towards less 18th century Excel spreadsheets and carrier pigeon to send invoices and stuff, and more efficiency in the industry, so that we become leaner and meaner. But it's not going away. The ubiquity you mentioned is the absolute strength, and that no other app in the world can beat that. The reason why people move to apps is what? Is it's cheaper, we mentioned cost. And the other aspect is trust. Because like you said, I also get 5 or 6 calls a day from people that I don't know, and I know it's fake. So, you tend to not pick up the phone anymore. It's actually the same thing on the messaging side. You tend to ignore messages that you don't know who are coming from, because there might be scams and stuff like that. So if this industry does not get its act together, work to manage cost, like I mentioned, but also work to manage trust, then we're in trouble. And then the OTTs and the apps and everything will take over, which is actually not good for everyone, not us and not the public, because you lose the ubiquity, you lose a lot of things. On the trust side of things, each and every country has this issue of Calls, you don't know who's calling, you don't pick up the phone. SMS, you don't know where they're coming from, you ignore them. So there's a lot of legitimate traffic that's being ignored. And that's a huge issue for everyone, not just the individuals, but administrations, businesses, everyone. The regulators try to fix that in every country, usually bringing together the national operators, the banks, the law enforcement, whatever, to go after the fraudsters nationally. The more efficient they are nationally, the more the fraud migrates to international, which is just domestic in another country, traveling through international interconnections. But the difference is that regulatory authorities in every country have little or no influence or authority on anything outside of their borders. So it's like, as many separate fish balls floating in the ocean. Nobody controls the ocean, nobody controls what happens in the other fishbowl, and it's a mess. What we're trying to do is to bring all this in order. On the industry side, it's one consortium that was mentioned last night. Thank you very much, Nadir and Zoe. Zoe was one of the first members of the one consortium. IBasis is also part of this, bringing together the industry to find ways we can fight fraud, spams and scams, and everything that is creating those issues. Things like traceback, things like the fight against illegitimate spoofing, things like promoting the right to use a number so that we do all those checks. The industry has a lot of things they can do, and we're also trying to foster a global discussion on the regulatory side. This is the other pillar, if you will, of this initiative. It's run by regulators. We don't run it. Industry doesn't run regulators, but we initiated it. And the other group is called Giraffe. They came up with a name, Global Informal Regulatory Anti-Fraud Forum. We have 35 regulators working together from all over Europe, the US, Brazil, UAE actually is in it, Singapore, Australia, you name it, and it's a growing group of regulators that are trying to find a global regulatory framework that will enable the industry fight against those kind of scams, which is the second issue we need to manage, cost and fraud. And that's it.
All right. Fabrizio, you want to add something to it?
Yeah, sure. So maybe I would also like to mention at that moment here that there are not only fraudsters in this market. Thanks God. Thanks God there are much more fantastic companies with great ideas, good intentions. And I think that's also important ones to mention, because sometimes I have, when you talk in the floors here, everybody's talking about fraud and it looks like we are all fraudsters. But I think we are far away from it. And but we have to get rid of the ones which abuse all the good intention from the other companies. So I think there are a lot of things what you can do to gain trust. So one thing, if I start in from the chain, with the operator. So trust is also if you pay a fair price for the product. So it starts there. Because if you have a fair price, you do not have always the same business models like we all know. There are so many business cases simply not there because it's not affordable. Where SMS particular, I'm an SMS expert, so I cannot talk about voice, but SMS traffic and SMS could be involved in so many other business cases if just the price would be fair. If you have so many processes where SMS is involved in daily life, which is so practical, which increases the user experience. Increased user experience means also increased trust, because it's just normal to use it. So that's one part. The other side is that I think carriers at the end, I understand they are also competitors and they fight for market share. But I think the carriers have here a common enemy. And when it's about fraud, I think they have to work closer together to pass the information, because if they harm one operator, I guess they harm also the other. And I think all operators have one thing in common. They don't want to have the fraudster traffic on their network, which is really good, that they have here something in common. What I liked very much, Philippe, is, and I'm very liberal, but yes, you need regulation. You know, it cannot be that you steal, I don't know, with a phishing message somebody's bank account and you just give up. I mean, oh, okay, tough luck, this grandmother lost 20K. No, this is hardcore crime, and I think the laws for such crime should be increased big time. You know, that you understand you go high risk to do those kind of fraud. And it's not only about SMS, it's in any kind of messaging channels where regulations, where the government also has to take his part. Because at the end, we want to protect the people, right? Every fraud attack, because you can make it, because we are in telecommunication, means all the fraud cases are massive fraud cases in the amount of targets we attack. Every attack, from my point of view, is almost a declaration of war to those people in this country. So I think that's very serious, and it's not really amusing if the government just says, oh, okay, good, the telco have to take care. Yes, they do, as much as they can, but I think also regulation has to be there to support that operators can do their job better.
And also to
Erik?
make sure that if you report something at the police, whatever you see, that it's taken seriously and that it's difficult. I understand this, but you know, I mean, talking about nice attacks which are there.
Fast, right? You know, not 2 years later. You know, you have to follow the traffic and follow the money.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly, Philippe.
Just to build on what you just said, I think it's a very important point you made, and it's not the point we're used to make in this industry that we need more regulation. But it is true in this specific instance, because what's happening? In the past 18 months, 2 years maybe, cyber fraud and scams and in general, right, globally, the things that affect you and me, societal issues, have become huge. We're talking about trillions worldwide, right? And this is just one aspect of what is feeding organized crime. I mean, serious things like human trafficking, I mean, all those things, right? So everyone's waking up, has been waking up in the past 18 months. Regulators, law enforcement, all these people saying, shit, we've got to do something about this. They're not talking to each other too much. And what's happening is each one of them is going their own way and trying to find frameworks and laws and regulation to go after the banks, to go after this industry, to try and find solutions. But how an industry like our industry, which is a global industry, we cannot live with 200 different regulations worldwide. We need them to work together and align their views, because otherwise it's going to kill everything, including the OTTs, not just us, right? So we absolutely need this global approach, and we need this to be a joint effort between the industry and regulation. Otherwise, I mean, it's what they say in DC. If you're not at the lunch table, you're on the menu, right? We need to be part of the conversation, and this is exactly where we're trying to push.
And on the other hand, a lunch needs a menu. That was what he was talking about. So we need to tackle, and we need to do it. Anybody else wants to, before I move on?
One comment.
Yeah, please.
It's in fact amazing that we are still all alive. Because if you look what we need to do.
We are like voice. We're still there.
We need to protect ourselves against increase of DDoS attacks, both on the voice platform and the messaging platform. We need to comply with OFAC regulation list. We need to comply with incoming fraud, outgoing fraud, trace back, and we all need systems and monitoring, file police reports, and we still make a small amount of margin. Guys, good luck.
Good. Nice curveball, Philippe.
But look what happened with the bank industry. They went through this, and they went through this early because it was money, so people take money seriously. Telecom was just, something smelly. And now it's changing, and it's happening to us. One of the good things it's going to do is it's going to remove the oxygen from a lot of the fraud in the industry. And that's good news.
All right. Talking about, collaborative efforts we're doing between the carriers, the regulators, the guys who fight fraud, the technology providers. You know, are those, let's say, partnerships, working together, forums, you know, are they the answer to still make an honest buck? You know, to make an honest euro, Swiss franc, pound, what have you? You know, Oman Real, you know. Is it, what to do? What do we need to do? Aleksandr, you know, Mark, bump in. What should we do? How can we secure our revenue streams? Do we need to change our business models?
Yeah.
Do we, as Edwin said, we have to do this and this and this and this and this, and by the end of the day, we still make even a small amount of margin, but will that be enough for the future? Because we also have a purpose. You know, we make sure that you can text around the world, you can call around the world, you can make it happen. Pete, Nabil, jump in. What should we do?
You know, this is the answer, but I think this is not a tablet that you eat and all problems will gone.
Mm-hmm.
So I will just tell you the case that I saw and one of
Yeah,
our
please.
partners here.
Yeah.
Tell us. So while we were installing our platform, and we have AI platform, we install it in a mobile operator in CIS region. So we have lots of conversation with department which is handle AI system that they implement in their network. They tell the story, the statistic, when they implement AI system which detect fraud traffic, and it works in a very simple way. So while there are unknown number calling to the subscriber, they didn't connect it. AI system listen if it understand that this is IVR or robot, it's just record everything and send it to mobile app. If it is a person, she could ask and answer some questions from the subscriber, and later, if she understands that this is a person, not something fraud, she asks through the mobile app to the subscriber, do you want to connect? So, and they said that this reduced more than 50% of fraud traffic. Because, first of all, if someone use spam, they need to have a conversion to continue spam. Because if they don't monetize it, so they will not doing it lately. So I think that the answer, one of course, there are lots of ways how to prevent fraud, but one of the ways we had to be in a collaboration with technical companies which provide different systems based on AI. Because I think that this is the future, and the future is already here.
All right.
So I think
Mark? Pete?
there's a lot of contradictions that are in this space, and as an industry, we find ourselves right in the middle of a rock and a hard place. So one of those nuances is, yeah, we must fight bills, we must have technology. Let's put in, stir, shaken. Let's do this. But
So do they. So do they have that technology. Once the technology is available, if I'm a fraudster or not, you know.
yeah. But you end up, perhaps in the case of the US, you look at some of the data that has come in, it hasn't had necessarily the impact that was expected on robocalls and fraud. In fact, there was a paper published last week that said fraud in the US had gone up, albeit in the implementation, the transitory window, because it's not fully there with the attestation yet. So you're in a rock and a hard place between consumer bills going up because you're having to invest more and more in technology, as you said, about, you know, you've got to do all of this, but you've got that thin layer on top. Something's got to give, so prices go up. But yeah, fraud doesn't come in. And then you say, well, actually, what we need is some global standards. Well, the nuance is there's only really one body that can introduce a global standard, and that's the ITU. And as much as I have a huge amount of respect for the ITU, it would be 2050 before they actually publish such a standard that can be agreed. So then you look to the industry to fix the problem. Well, if the industry is going to fix the problem, the 800-pound gorillas in the room, Verizon, Microsoft, everyone else, and then you risk competition and innovation potentially by being led down a path of the big multi-billion pound Goliaths. So regulation is part of the answer, but there's 190-something countries on Earth. Increasingly, what we're seeing is a globalization of telecoms. We're seeing messages, you know, the likes of Meta and everybody, global platforms, but a nationalization of regulation. So in the case of blocking CLIs, Norway's got their own rules. Germany, France, they all went down the, right, you can't pass on the international gateway one of our numbers. But then the UK and Ireland go, well, yeah, maybe you can, maybe you can't. And then you're ending up with this mishmash of rules and with no solution to it. And I think we're going to see an increase towards the nationalization of telecoms because of threats to security, and security is always a reserved matter. National security is always a reserved matter. So when the UK then decided to out-German the Germans with the Telecom Security Act, and then just set a complete gold standard, and you're going to see this, again, a mishmash framework around the world. So again, rock in a hard place, and it's going to be the least worst, I think, approach we have to take.
Philippe?
Just a quick one, because you described the situation really well, and this is exactly one of the things we're trying to fix with this One Consortium and Giraffe thing. We're bringing together the entire industry as much as possible and regulators from all over the world so that they can align their views and avoid this kind of piecemeal thing where you don't know who does what, and then it creates more loopholes for more fraudsters. So that's why, that's exactly why we're doing this, and it's the traction we're getting proves that we're onto something good.
Mark?
I think we're at a really exciting place. I mean, there's been some really depressing talk here today, but actually
I'm coming to the beautiful part.
There's been nuances of excellence. I mean, we mentioned earlier that the network itself, whether it's for voice or SMS or whatever, it's communication. It's amazing. It's fundamentally rock solid, super secure. We've also mentioned the standards and the security that we're coming with the help of AI. We've got these things coming in. We've also mentioned that fraud is actually quite small compared to the overall amount of communication we do as human beings across the world. It's relatively small. It's a problem. But we've got technology coming, and we've got standards and people that we're talking. We're talking about doing something globally, doing something internationally, creating standards. We're talking about it. But at the same time, everything, the base is solid. People want to communicate. We talked about making money. Yeah, it might be small margins or it might be smaller margins, but it's volume. And those volumes are increasing. People still want to communicate. So I think we're at a really exciting point. And let's not get depressed about all this fraudulent stuff, because we as human beings, we want to communicate. We're able to communicate internationally, globally, at the snap of our fingers. We've got communication devices now that we didn't have 30 years ago. So, it's...
Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Because, I was back then, and it was really a nice,
we talk about forms of communication now. That's changed. 30 years ago, yeah, we used to ring our wives and our other halves and say, I'm coming home for dinner now, make sure dinner's on.
And you never showed up anymore.
Now we do it by message, or the message coming, don't forget to pick up the dog on the way home. It's that kind of thing. So we've got more forms of communication. And I'm excited about that and the fact that we've got those things. And yeah, we're communicating more. That's all I can see. And we've got the platforms to do that. That's the exciting part. Yes, we've got regulations coming because we've got some bad players. We want to get them out of the industry, same as the banking industry did. We can do it. It's not something where we're sitting here going, oh my God, what are we going to do? We can do it. We've got a good core-based platform. We've got people that want to communicate as our customers. And as you mentioned earlier, it's about getting the pricing right. The really, really key thing about the operator part, for me, is that the quality part, the quality of communications through a mobile operator is tremendous.
That's also talking about restoring trust.
But if we talk about that quality piece, if you give bad quality, I mean, we've got cases where a customer's using poor quality services and they're making 3 calls, whereas with a good quality service through a mobile operator, they're only making 1. So when you come to cost, actually, it's a falsity because they're making 3 times as many calls, 3 times the cost, as opposed to once. So quality is very, very important. I think the operators have got a really good place in that aspect.
So Nabil, coming a little bit to the end, because yes, this panel is about restoring the trust and to see what we can do and bring our thoughts to the table to restore trust. And yes, of course, you come to fraud and AIT and whatever, of course, but what do you think are the strategic priorities for the carriers and for the operators ahead? What should we do?
Definitely the first thing that we need to do, and we've already spoken in the panel, is cooperate and collaborate with each other. That is very important. I have an example here in Oman where through cooperation with the regulator and the 3 operators, we were able to share a location of a customer when we saw a call coming from outside. Didn't take care of fraud completely, but it reduced 70 to 80% of the cases where CLIs used to be, the customer is here and his CLI was being used to make calls from outside. Yesterday, I think it was announced the scam signal in UK, where there was a collaboration between the banks, GSMA, and the mobile operators, where they're now looking at how they can identify and block a scam call or a scam message coming to a British customer in UK. So collaboration and cooperation is definitely what is required, and that is why as Zoe we are also committed to the One Consortium project, and we are working very intensely with the One Consortium team. There are 6 or 7 working groups. If there are MNOs around in this room today, I think you guys should also have a look at it, because the more we get in together into this, the more information is available for us and the more knowledge sharing happens. Most of the conferences over here, the agenda, if I see my calendar and agenda, it's about we need to get this kind of a traffic, we need to get this money out from this partner, he's not paid us yet, and we need to see and grow business. There's no talk about, are we discussing about quality, are we discussing what's happening on my network, what's happening on your network? No, we don't talk about that. Yes, I receive a lot of spam calls, but I don't talk to anybody about it. Are you receiving it in your network also? How are you managing it at your end? How does it work? So this is something which I think open dialogue, cooperation, collaboration, like Mark said rightly, we have the technology, the network is quite solid, everything is there in place, but we refuse to talk to each other. If I'm hit by a carrier on the voice side, I don't talk about it. I need to come out and tell you guys, listen, this particular carrier owed me money and he's disappeared. Just be careful if you're dealing with this guy. No, I can't do this. I don't want to wash my laundry in the public. That is something which is, something which we as MNOs, we should come out of that shame factor and inform people. Let the other people know that, there is a danger in dealing with a particular network, or there is a particular fraud that is happening on my network.
Edwin, how do you, what are the strategic priorities for the operators, the carriers?
What I said in the first panel session, the opening panel session as well, and I'm going to repeat that. I think cooperation, transparency, partnerships, let's say, is key. I think working together, not as an individualist, but as a group, become a self-cleaning industry. Likewise, what Mark said, our network is fantastic. Let's say, and the quality we deliver, and let's say the technology, the innovation, what we see. 3 years ago, it was all about IoT. Now it's all about AI. And let's say it's so massive developing that we cannot do that as an individual company anymore. And partnership for the future, whether that will be GVs or whatever combinations, it's inevitable.
Fabrizio, I mean, as a supplier, the majority of your platforms are with them. But what do you tell them? How can they, not so much secure, but what kind of strategic priorities should they take? The operators, the carriers.
So obviously, the good thing is the customers which buy our platforms, they are ready to invest. So that's already good. It doesn't matter with other suppliers or with us. Because they want to establish a good service to the clients. They want, with a platform like ours, get control of it again and be in the cockpit and not just be a passenger. Also, what I believe is that, and what I tell them is, don't think in short term. What is a quarter? A quarter is gone, is in 90 days. You invest all those salaries, so many people to feed, think in long term, because the short-term money looks attractive, but at the end, this bill will be very, very expensive. So long-term thinking about new services, new solutions, what can be done, and to trust the services, what has been offered, because we do not have to feel ashamed. Voice, okay, voice is very old. SMS, yes, it's very old. So what? We are also not teenies anymore, right here, and we are still cool and good. So the same thing with the services. We do not have to feel ashamed for that. Let's monetize it in a good way, not short-term and thinking, tomorrow SMS is anyway gone or voice anyway gone. We do not care anymore. We just take out like a sponge as fast as we can. That's really short-term thinking. And I really believe in that, long-term thinking, invest, hire people that they can establish a business nicely, and then you have also a nice income, because that's both voice and SMS. You can do still millions of revenue and profit. It's an attractive long-term business if it will be managed well. Yeah?
Okay. Round. Guys, closing round, because we could talk even more, but almost we are at the 6 o'clock news, and and then these people will tell me, thank you, Erik, well done, this panel until 6. No, not do this. Philippe, closing round, what should we look out for? Scope a bit the future. What? Tell us.
Keep it up, keep the faith. Keep the faith. Voice has been dying for about 20 years. And we're in good shape. So not worried there. Things are changing. It's not the same business. It's not the same industry. Sometimes not the same technology. We need to adapt. We need to adapt to lower costs. We need to streamline the industry using APIs and stuff like that. We need to monetize our network, like Mark pointed out. I think it's a great point. Voice network can be used for multiple other things than just voice calls. Think authentication, think all those things, flash calls and what have you. So that's something we need to explore as well. And then I'm going to get back to trust. I think I said what we're trying to do. We have Zoe on board. We have IBasis on board. We have many traffic carrying companies and vendors. We have many industry organizations. GSM is working with us. So we need to fix this, because otherwise, yes, we're in trouble. People are not going to pick up the phone anymore, and then we die. But
so
hopefully not soon.
My comment would be, then fix it, Philippe. Then do it.
Yeah, but I need you.
Blame somebody. That's so easy. Thank you. Aleksandr, your takeaway.
Yeah, I will be very fast. So I think that if we're looking for the future, so the best way is looking for new ways of business and the new income, new types of income.
Diversification?
Yeah, diversification. You're absolutely right. Also, we had to understand that one of the ways which could optimize and reduce costs is AI systems. So also very important thing. And everyone said cooperation, and we had to work together.
Okay, again, a bit negative, but I'm doing these moderation sessions for more than 10 years. And it's always, we need to do more partnership. Yes, we need to be more, open and whatever. Then do it. Stop talking about it. Let's just do it. Mark, over to you. Your takeaway.
Yeah, I'll agree with my panelists, really. I think there's opportunities there, obviously, for the operators to become lean and meaner. And also, I think, add value to their core services. The core services are great, and communications isn't going to go away. We communicate. When we talk about the real future, then what devices are we going to be using in the future? I think embedded technology.
No, nobody's going to do things on me.
And if we really go further down the line, telepathy. Watch out for telepathy.
There you go. Edwin?
Only one comment. Rejuvenation. We need young blood in our industry.
Very true.
Let's say, we get that young blood, come on. 5 years from now, this panel will not exist. We
what?
know that.
2 years?
2 years.
2 years.
No, but that's seriously an issue, and I think I appreciate the Zoe initiative, where they, let's say, stimulate entrepreneurs from school, and they give them the opportunity, let's say, to rise and shine. And I think in every company, in every wholesale environment, we should indeed attract the youngsters, because the reality is, let's say, universities and other educations are not lined up to join the jump into telecommunications, because it's still not sexy. Usually, if we use the word AI, wow, then it is sexy.
Right, that. I mean, I like congresses, so I also go to other industry congresses. And when I would go to, or still go to, IT congresses, it used to be nerdy. Trust me, it's more happy, more juicy, more funky than telco. It is true. And as Edwin said, let's rejuvenize and let's make things that we make it juicy and funky to attract those people, because that's what we need to do. And so we can go in pension. You know, that's actually what he's saying, right? Fabrizio.
Well then, happy retirement, guys. And I'll come drop by from time to time here in our industry.
You can visit us in this big house, you know.
So what I would like to take or to say is our industry got used that we have all those fraud cases. It's a long-term topic since years, and somehow we are all a little bit tired of it, and we just also like almost accepted it that it's part of it. And I think that's very wrong. You know, it's, you know, when I talk with people, they're all angry, but nobody's saying something. Nobody's standing up. You know, they make the fist in the pocket and are angry. And I think if we want to save this industry or make this industry even better than now, because it's a wonderful industry, then maybe we should all also stand up and not to shout up, not to shut up all the time, and just also to name the things as they are. And sometimes, you know, the truth hurts, but, you know, it helps, right? So that's my takeaway.
Thank you, Fabrizio. Nabil?
Make it simple. We have survived and we will survive if we follow the ABCD: act, you know, believe, contribute, and develop.
Thank you. Last famous words, Pete.
So I'll try to take a leaf out of Mark's book and be the positive one then. This is an industry that started with relaying messages by Morse code via stations 20 miles apart. And here we are now able to create a group chat by video and everything with anyone in the world. This industry is fantastic at innovating. It's fantastic at delivering value to customers. It's brilliant at bringing people together. And as an industry with, you know, the people that follow us on this panel in 10 years' time, in my case, thank you. You know, I'm sure we'll continue and carry that baton forward. Fraudsters are clever. They're also innovators. They're also the dark side of the force, if you like. And, you know, we can keep talking about it. We just got to get on and fix it. But we'll fix this one, and make no mistake, there'll be the next one. There'll be the next vector, and the vector after that. So we just have to keep out-innovating, outgrowing, adding value, and keep playing, as I say, that carnival game, whack-a-mole, if you know it. We'll whack the latest mole, and up will pop another one, and we'll whack that one as well.
Keep on whacking. Waka waka. I would almost say. So it's all your fault. And you need to fix it, Philippe, with the i3-Form and the One Consortium. Make it happen.
Thank you. Working on it.
And with that, thank you so much for and bearing your precious time with us. Thank you so much for being here. This is the close. This is the wrap up of the GCCM 2024 in the Middle East, in the beautiful country of Oman. And I'm really grateful that they would have us. And I am very grateful personally having these senior experts here around these tables, actually. Thank you so much.